Spencer Strider had some pretty strong comments at Braves FanFest, including that this Braves team should be World Series or bust when it comes to going into 2024. We'll talk about those comments as well as the Max Fried comments about his extension and everything else coming out of Braves FanFest on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure you check out my written work over at BravesToday.com. Make sure you follow the podcast on social media at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. Always enjoy hearing from you and how I can make this podcast even better for you out there, the listener. And on Friday, we'll have our mailbag episode. So look for a post from LockedOn_Braves on Twitter. Respond to that post to have your question answered in our mailbag Friday episode. Also, if you're new, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Up over 8,800 subscribers, really close to 8,900, and obviously 9K, trying to get to 10K by opening day. You can help me get there by hitting that thumbs up button on this video as well. Appreciate all of you who subscribe on YouTube and also those who subscribed wherever you get your audio version, Spotify, whatever it may be. So many places out there you can listen to Locked On Braves, and I appreciate all your support, all my everydayers out there, those who are joining me live. We got Jason Saylor, Matthew, Kevin, Floyd in here right now, Dwight, Allen as well, Lion Man. Thanks so much for joining here live on today's podcast to talk about a lot of the comments coming out of Braves FanFest, and want to focus mostly on the comments from Strider and Max Fried that I think were very interesting. Max Fried, or Spencer Strider rather, always a very interesting interview. Always, speaks very clearly, and I think his message was loud and clear, as I titled this podcast. So I want to get into some of his comments and what it means for this Braves team in 2024. Before we do, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. That's $150. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, let's jump into some of the comments from Braves FanFest. If you were able to go, it looks like it was a great time despite the weather. I've said I haven't been able to go myself, but certainly looking forward to going one day when the kids are a little bit older. But a lot of interesting comments made at FanFest, and it's the first time we really get to hear from a lot of these players after the off season, and it's our real first chance to ask them some questions. So usually some very good comments coming out of FanFest. And I want to start with the comments from Spencer Strider. I'm going to be reading you several quotes on today's episode, so bear with me as I go through some of those. But this comment from Spencer Strider, this quote rather says, "Absolutely. I think rhetoric is one, especially when we clinch so early in September, talking about the specific ideas he and his teammates have discussed about what happened last year." Said, "I think just changing the way we talk, the goals we set, what we verbalize into existence, that's going to be important for us. I think there should be no acceptance of anything less than winning a World Series in this organization. Said it a little bit ago, I believe I'm biased, but this is the most talented team in baseball. We need to set our bar as high as possible. Anything less than that is an underachievement for us." So very, very strong message here from Spencer Strider, and very true message when I think you take it on a whole and say that this organization has set this team up to where it's World Series or bust. And I want to get into the discussion. It's really a discussion we've had since the end of last year. Do you prioritize 162 or what happens in 1 month in October? And I don't know that Spencer Strider, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that Spencer Strider is saying it's just a complete failure of a season if you don't win a World Series. The way I take it, the point is just that this team's goals, its number one goal should be to win a World Series. This team is that good. Like he said, and I believe we've done the battle on paper with both the Dodgers and Phillies, and the Braves come out on top in both of those. I think they are the best team on paper, most talented team. The Braves should be looking at this year and really the last 2 years and hopefully several years going forward as it is a World Series caliber team. That's what the Braves have. You look at what the Diamondbacks did last year, and to some extent, even the Rangers. I don't know if many people going into last year would have said the Rangers have the team to win a World Series, but you look more so at the Diamondbacks. They should have been happy with just getting to the post, especially with 84 wins. They should have just been happy getting to the postseason. It's no longer that. It's a great accomplishment to get to the postseason. I don't want to diminish that at all. But with the way this team has been set up, it should be World Series or bust. Every player in that locker room should be expecting to win the World Series this year. Every front office person should be expecting to win the World Series this year. Every move that is made should be to win a World Series this year because that's where this team is at. And I think they've done that. I'm not saying they haven't. This team is spending more money than they ever have. I think they are doing that. But that should certainly be the mindset of this Braves front office and this team, is that we are talented enough to win a World Series. I think, and I've seen some people already say this, in the chat section. Lineman says, what's loud and clear? Last year was a wasted chance to win a World Series. I don't see anyone beating the loaded Dodgers this year. Seen others say that, it's a failure if you don't. Alan Daniel says, glad to see we have a pitcher that has some outspokenness to him. The Braves have a lot of quiet leaders. Nice to see one that will speak up. I also agree if we don't win the series this season was a loss. From a fan's perspective, and we've talked about this since the end of last year, I think it's a little bit silly, in my just personal opinion, to put so much stock into what happens in 1 month over what happens over 5 months, over a 162 game schedule. No one's ever going to convince me that proving what happens in 1 month is more deserving of what happens over 162 games. 162 games is a much larger sample size to tell you who the better team all-around team in baseball is. That's not the format we have. That's not what we're accustomed to as fans. We're accustomed to whoever wins in October, that's the best team in baseball. That's the best team in October. It's not the best team in baseball over 162. But as a fan's perspective, I got to think I'd be a pretty bitter and horrible fan to deal with if all of my joy and happiness came from whether or not I won a World Series. I was born in 1988. The Braves have won 2 World Series in that time. Are you going to tell me I've only enjoyed 2 seasons in my lifetime as a Braves fan? From a front office perspective, I get what Spencer Strider is saying. In a team perspective, this team is good enough to win a World Series now, and that should be the goal. From a fan perspective, if you're saying it's World Series or this season is a loss, as Daniel and others said earlier, I just don't have that mindset. If you do, I always say on here, be a fan the way you want to be a fan. I'm never going to tell you how to be a fan. It's hard for me to get behind that mindset. I say it all the time. I enjoy the journey of a baseball season. 162. The last 2 years have been tough because I feel like the Braves were the best team in baseball. They just didn't show it in October when it mattered the most to most people. But I still think, from a fan's perspective, for me at least, I still put a lot more significance over 162. And I think that more often than not proves who the better all-around team is. Not who can win a short wild card series, not who can win a short 5-game series, who the best team is top to bottom over 162. But I still love these comments by Spencer Strider. Got some more here from him. He says, I think there's obviously a lot of noise and a lot going on in the postseason that's not essential to performing on the field. Probably talking about the playoff format a little bit there. We dealt with that a little bit last year, and it was a learning experience. The best thing about failure is at least it gives you the opportunity to improve. There's no guarantee of anything happening this year. We only have the opportunity. But like I said, we've got everything we need to achieve what we want to. He said, the sky is truly the limit for us. All the things we were able to do in the regular season last year are pretty special. I think we'd gladly trade some of it for a World Series, but the pieces are there 100% to maximize what we can do in that short sample size of the postseason. Starting day one of spring training, that's going to be the goal, putting ourselves in a position every single day to be successful in that arena. So I love those comments. And again, that should be the goal, the mindset of this team is we are good enough to win a World Series. And anything less than that should be a disappointment for ourselves. That doesn't mean they can't accomplish great things along the way. Last year they did amazing things, especially offensively, won 104 games, did some great things in the regular season, but they want to finish that off. Obviously, we as fans want them to finish that off. So I love these comments from Strider. I like this last one from him as well, talking about losing the NLDS again last year. He says, that's all I've thought about. That's the conversation that we've had as a team, whether it's in groups or one-on-one throughout the offseason. It's just, how do we put ourselves in a position to have a better outcome in the postseason? Not to say we have the regular season down. I'm certainly not insinuating that. Never know what's going to happen, but we got to make the most of everything that happens throughout the regular season so that we're in the best position possible in the postseason. I think that last year was a big learning experience, like you said, for me and just for everybody. More than the other comments, I love this one. I've been talking about this all offseason. Let's be postseason focused. Again, can't take the regular season for granted, but in order for this team to not reach the postseason, some things would really, really have to go wrong. Like Kylie McDaniel at ESPN said, basically several players would have to get hurt for things to go bad. Several players would have to regress. And I think the Braves have done this. I think they've been very careful, mostly on the pitcher side of things, with trying to keep pitchers fresh for the postseason. But I think there should be somewhat of a postseason mentality, making sure that you are ready to put yourself in the best position to win when it comes to the postseason. So love these comments from Strider. I always love hearing him talk. He's so straightforward, usually gives you some really good insight and comments. So wanted to go a little bit deeper into some of those. Next, we'll get into the Max Fried comments. Not as much there, but we'll at least talk about a possible contract extension. Did he give any more hope of that at Braves FanFest? No, not really, but we'll discuss that and a lot more that came out of the FanFest here next. Forget frantic lunch preps and rushed dinners. Factor's 2-minute meals are your secret weapon. Fuel up fast with restaurant-quality meals, all delivered right to your door. Factor now offers loads of snack options like breakfast, smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep me going no matter what's on the schedule. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. Get chef-crafted restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door. They're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. When things get hectic, Factor is flexible. Change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. Stress less over meal times. Factor's no prep, no mess meals free up time otherwise spent on shopping, cooking, cleanup. No more time wasting time in the kitchen, more time for your kids, which I really enjoy. Head on over to factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 and use code LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnMLB50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off. NFL postseason is here. The big game is coming up pretty soon as well. And you can get in on the action with America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $150 just by placing a $5 bet with FanDuel. You've been thinking about joining FanDuel. There's no better time to get in on the action. Like I said, you got the big game coming up here soon. You got NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball right around the corner. And you can do all that over at FanDuel.com/LockedOn, or you can use their app, which is also super easy to use in so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, Mega Parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and many, many more. And like I said, they're going to have a lot of going on for the big game in a couple of weeks. They also have their MLB future bets out where you can see Acuna and Strider as your MVP and Cy Young favorites. The Braves right behind the Dodgers for the favorite to win the World Series. You can see all that over on FanDuel.com/lockedon. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, let's get into some more of the comments from the FanFest that we had over the weekend. Next, we'll talk about Max Fried's comments. In regards to possible contract extension, he said, "It's out of my control right now, but the Braves do things a certain way, and I know that privacy and doing things behind closed doors is the way things are done. I respect that. I know I love being here, and I'm really excited to get started with this group. This is all I really know," talking about this organization, where he's been since he was traded here in 2015. This organization's been nothing but supportive to me. I know the fans and city have really embraced me. I've really enjoyed my time here. So when he says, and he's very careful in making these comments in this question where he's answering, very deliberate in the way that he's answering them, trying to be careful as he can be. What does he mean by out of my control? And this is the part that, like I've been saying for over a year now, I think Max Fried is gone. But when he tells me that it's out of his control, that even further cements it for me that he's gone. If we've learned anything from the Freddie Freeman situation, you have to take some control of negotiations with Alex Anthopoulos if you really want to be in Atlanta. Freddie Freeman would be here if he just picked up a phone and called Alex Anthopoulos. Now, part of that is there was a lockout going on during that offseason, and you couldn't, owners, GMs couldn't talk to players. So that complicated matters a little bit in the Freddie Freeman situation. But if Freddie Freeman picks up a phone and calls Alex and says, "Hey, I want to be here," Freddie Freeman is still in Atlanta. I'm not saying I love Matt Olson and he's here. I'm just telling you, if that happened, Freddie Freeman would still be in Atlanta. Dansby Swanson learned from that. And while a deal never happened, Dansby was very involved and active in calling Alex Anthopoulos. Alex Anthopoulos lets you know he does not contact free agents. He does not. If you want to contact him, he will pick up the phone. Dansby learned that from the Freddie negotiations, and he called Alex Anthopoulos. And Dansby would have taken less money, but he's not going to take $70 million less than what the Cubs offered him. But credit to Dansby for at least being involved. So when Max Fried tells me it's out of his control, that worries me even more that something's not going to happen, because you want to stay in Atlanta. You're going to have to take a team-friendly deal, and you're going to have to let Alex know. You're going to have to be in contact with him in order to try to get something done. Otherwise, Alex is going to take all the bluffs in the world, and he's not going to overpay. So I don't think Max is coming back. I've thought that for a while. We'll see what Blake Snell gets this free agency or this offseason, but I got to imagine Fried gets 6 to 7 years for close to $175 million. Similar to what Aaron Nola got, especially comes back, proves healthy, has a big year. If he has a top 5 Cy Young year, I could see him getting $30 million a year. I don't think the Braves are going to give him that. Certainly not before the end of the season. I've been talking about this a lot here lately as well. I don't think there's any way it happens before the end of the year, because that would take the Braves over that third luxury tax threshold unless they're okay with that. But if you were to extend Max Fried now, his AAV is going to go up significantly and take them into that third tax threshold. I don't think they're trading him. I still get people asking me all the time, should the Braves trade Max Fried? I don't, unless somehow you're going to trade Max Fried and somehow get back a top of the rotation starter that is under control. Like one that's been proposed to me is one to go get Luis Castillo. Like, if you could somehow pull off a trade where all you're giving up is Max Fried and you're getting a Luis Castillo in return, and I'm sure there'd have to be some other moving parts to that. Yeah, that makes sense. You're getting another top of the rotation guy with years of control. And I think Castillo is making $22 million a year, maybe a little bit more than that. But I don't see that type of package really happening. And I don't think it makes a lot of sense to trade Max Fried when, as Spencer Strider said, this is a World Series or bust team. Your best chance at winning a World Series is with a healthy Max Fried in your rotation. So I don't think it's happening. I don't think the comments from Max Fried over the weekend really helped anything. Certainly, when he tells me it's out of his control, I don't think it's going to be getting done. Certainly not anytime soon. All right, some of the other comments from FanFest, Ozzy Albies saying pretty strongly he doesn't like the long break between the regular season and NLDS, says it's longer than the All-Star break. Brings up what I've said several times on here. It allows the wild card team to come into that NLDS hot. They're already in the playoff atmosphere, already, they've seen live pitching a lot sooner than the other team. I think it's certainly a disadvantage to go into the wild card series, but it's an advantage once you come out of that wild card series, I feel like, for that wild card team. Matt Olson kind of backed up that what Ozzy said as well, but also added in, we got to figure out a way to deal with this because we're hopefully still going to win this division and have that opportunity going forward. I'm kind of paraphrasing what both of them said because I couldn't find the video again on this one, but just thought it was interesting that they both brought up, the long layoff is, and how they don't like it. And I certainly understand, and it hasn't worked out again. TDA's most hated team. I love this question, and Travis Darno is hilarious. I thought it was really funny, especially the way that he answered the pauses and everything. What is he supposed to say? I saw some Mets fans getting upset, their feelings hurt in the comments section. I mean, it's a team that, drafted him and they kind of gave up on him. Now, he was injured a lot during that time. I certainly understand that. And I do still consider the Mets a bigger overall rival than the Phillies. I know the Phillies are the team that's knocked the Braves out the last couple of years, but just from my childhood to now, the Mets still feel like the rival for the Braves. The Phillies are just that roadblock right now that the Braves got to get past in order to get back to win another World Series. Jared Kelnick's comments on Truist versus T-Mobile Park. You had Mariners fans upset about this, but he was really just saying that he feels like right field is a better spot for him to hit home runs in Truist Park over T-Mobile. I don't know how true that is. I think it's just 1 foot shorter down the line in Truist to T-Mobile. Austin Riley thinks he can win a Gold Glove. I love hearing that, and I certainly think the glove has gotten better for him. Also mentioned that the Braves could still sign Kevin Pillar. I think that's definitely on the table. Another thing I really loved, everyone mentioning how much they love the energy of Chris Sale and his desire to win. We talked a lot about the end of last season, the Braves needing somebody to come in with that fire, that energy, like a Jock Peterson had in 2021 for this team. Sounds like Chris Sale could be that guy. Charlie Morton said, watching him on the field, how he conducts himself, he's an animal, and I've heard nothing but great things about him off the field. So I love hearing these comments about Chris Sale. It sounds like he can be a fiery type of guy. Hopefully, he's healthy, obviously, and on the field. That will definitely help. But I love all the comments I'm hearing about Chris Sale. Attendance over 50,000 people at FanFest, despite the rainy conditions. People still absolutely love this team. Nobody's getting bored with success, which you worry about. It happened in the early 2000s. After all the success the Braves had in the 90s and it ran into the early 2000s, you saw people dial back kind of their support of the Braves during that time. Doesn't seem to be getting bored with that right now. Nobody's running away after disappointing ends to the last two seasons. Love the fact that Braves fans still showed out there. And I love that Acuna's kid was wanting to FaceTime with Blooper. Love those wholesome moments right there. Also, Acuna at the award ceremony later that night, helping his brother get a picture with Ohtani. Some other great moments as well. So a lot of good stuff happening at FanFest. A really fun weekend. Some good comments coming out of there as well. Like I said, this kind of kicks off the season in my mind. Now you're just a couple of weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting, and then you're a couple of weeks away from spring training games started, and then you get into March, and the season starts in March this year. So we are not too far away. We're going to ramp things up here on the podcast as well, have a lot more content coming your way. Also had a lot of news items come out the last couple of days. We're starting to see some of these last free agent stragglers get signed. We'll discuss those here next. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts to choose from for your ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win, just like Ronald Acuna Jr. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Want to remind you one more time, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. I got a little bit of news to get into, or a lot of news rather to get into from the last couple of days. Because if you didn't know, on Monday, I put out my top 5 Braves prospect list. You want to go check that out. Lindsey Crosby from Locked On MLB Prospects joined the show to go over those top 5 with me. And you're seeing a lot of prospect rankings coming out this week. We're doing a lot of that over on bravestoday.com as well. But MLB Pipeline put out their top 100. They had A.J. Smith-Shawver at 69, Hurston Waldrop at 90, Kylie McDaniel, who I mentioned earlier because of a strange comment he had. But he also put out his top 100 over at ESPN, and he only had Hurston Waldrop in there. And I believe it was somewhere in the 70s. So, those two guys definitely top 2 prospects in the Braves system. But again, you want to hear my top 5, go back and listen to Monday's episode. Justin Turner signed a 1-year, $13 million deal with the Blue Jays. Jorge Polanco traded from the Twins to the Mariners for Anthony DeSclafani, Justin Topa, Gabriel Gonzalez, and Darren Bowen. Aaron Hicks signs with the Angels for $740K. I know some people mention him as a possibility for the Braves outfield bench spot, but he signs with the Angels. Alex Wood signs with the Oakland A's. Haven't heard what the money is there, but old Brave and Georgia Bulldog Alex Wood with the A's. Padres signed Wandy Peralta for 4 years, $16.5 million. So a good reliever off the market there. And the Guardians signed Carlos Carrasco to a minor league deal. That's what I'm looking for. I want to see the Braves sign a minor league deal to some veteran who's just looking to, extend his career, something like that, to push and give the Braves some competition and some depth at the minor league level. I want to see the Braves make a signing or two like that. Hector Neris signs with the Cubs for 1 year, $9 million. Colt Keith gets an extension with the Tigers before even playing a major league game, and kind of leads to the question, and we wrote about this over on bravestoday.com, who's the next young Braves prospect to get an extension? And we saw them do it really early with Michael Harris and Spencer Strider. If Waldrop comes up this year and kind of cements himself in the rotation, do you see him do that with him? Be interesting to see who the next extension is for the Braves. And then some sad news, Jimmy Williams passed away. Was third base coach for the Braves from 1991 to 1996. Won 910 games as a manager for the Red Sox, Blue Jays, and Astros. And he was a third base coach that sent Sid Bream home in 1992, or did he? There's actually no video evidence showing that he sent him home, and Sid Bream himself says he doesn't know if Jimmy Williams sent him home, but he was running home anyway. One of the best moments in Braves history, but sad to hear the passing of Jimmy Williams. All right, appreciate your discussion today. Really appreciate all the comments, those who joined live. I see Little Ian here, Leland, Ross, Matthew, Michael Solo, Kevin Caps, Kevin Clone, John Edward in here late as well, Richard Reichel. I know I saw Joe Me in here at some point. Gregory, thank you all for joining here live on the podcast. James Swope, Jeffrey Humphreys, Doug in here, Eibel in here, Brydog, thank you so much. Win Gracer, thanks for joining the chat. If I didn't get to your question or comment, please put it down below on YouTube, and I'll make sure to get to it there. I saw somebody earlier talking about why does Alex Anthopoulos get a pass in the Freddie Freeman situation. Why does Freeman get the blame? I don't necessarily blame Freeman as much as I do his agent, who he later fired for those negotiations. You really want to put blame on somebody, you can put it on his agent, but I do also put some of the blame on Freeman for not taking more control of the situation. There's somewhere that he really wanted to be, and I think obviously he did. I see Leland saying, looking forward to the Mailbag Friday. Be thinking about those questions, submit them. I'll send out a post on @LockedOn_Braves on Twitter on Friday afternoon. Submit your questions to that tweet to get answered in Friday's mailbag episode, which will be our next podcast here at Locked On Braves. But that will do it for this episode. Again, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new, on the road to 10K by opening day. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button on this video. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.